Hi guys, welcome to EduTap. So guys, I welcome you to this session in which we are going to discuss the answer writing practice, right? So guys, basically there are two sessions with respect to the ESI answer writing practice. Today is the first session and tomorrow will be the second session, right? So guys, as you all know that NABARD Grade A Phase 2 examination is to be conducted on 29th October. That is, you have hardly 18 or 19 days, right? 18 or 19 days with you. So it is very much important for you to understand the importance of the descriptive answer writing. Guys, out of 200, 150 the descriptive answer writing, the descriptive answer comprises of 150 marks, right? Which means around 75% of the examination is the writing, is all about writing, right? So you must write the answers. So this is the key that you need to understand. We generally what is our mindset, that we prepare for the objective component and we skip the descriptive part, right? But that is not required, guys, and this strategy will not be helpful for you in this examination. If you want to score, if you want to get the selection, guys, you have to do what? You have to write the answers, right? You have to write the answers, because descriptive English is also about writing, and the components of ESI and ARD also comprises of descriptive component along with the objective component. So guys, good evening all. So I hope I am visible and audible, and if everything is good, then do let me know. Do give thumbs up in the chat box so that we can proceed with our today's important lecture. So guys, do let me know if everything is good. Am I audible and visible, guys? Hello Nilesh, hello Rishabh, good evening. Guys, do let me know if I am audible and visible. Great. Okay, so let's proceed, guys. So this is lecture number 1 with respect to the ESI writing practice. So guys, in this session, what we are going to discuss? We are going to discuss the answer writing framework, right? What guidelines you need to follow, what guidelines, what rules you need to keep in your mind while writing an answer. These all things we are going to discuss in this session itself, right? And in tomorrow's session of ESI, that is on part 2, what we are going to discuss, we will be practicing live question and answer. ठीक है, वहां पर हम live question देंगे और वहां पे हम live practice करेंगे. So guys, these sessions are required to be participative. ठीक है, आप सभी को participate करना है यहाँ पे, so that these sessions are just for the learning, guys. ठीक है, यहीं पर आपको learning करनी है, यहीं पर आपको practice करनी है, so that you can not commit mistake in your actual examination, right? तो जितना आप participate करेंगे उतना ही आपके लिए beneficial होने वाला है. So guys, let's proceed. So first of all, you need to know what are the objectives of these sessions, right? So the objective is to remove the fear with respect to the descriptive writing. ठीक है, बहुत सारे एस्पिरेंट्स के मन में डाउट है that they are not enough capable, that they have not written any answer in the past. So guys, just you need to remove the fear from your mind with respect to the descriptive answer writing. So this is the main objective of these sessions, right? कि आपके मन से जो भी fear है, जो भी obstacles हैं, उसको हटाना है. Irrespective of the fact that you have not written any answer in the past, guys, believe me, after attending this session, you will be able to write an answer. ठीक है, आप completely confident feel करेंगे after attending this session. But one request is that you have to attend this session completely. ठीक है, आपको सारे session ये वाले session पूरा completely आपको attend करना है, guys. And after attending this, you will see the confidence level that you have. ठीक है, second objective is help you understand common rules and guidelines of descriptive writing. Sometimes, guys, what happens that we have a lot of we have a good content with respect to any topic. ठीक है, we have very good content with respect to any topic, but what is lacking is to understand the rules and guidelines which we need to follow while writing an answer. ठीक है, so through this session we are going to discuss the rules and guidelines that is required, that is mandatory for a good answer, for good descriptive answer writing. ठीक है, so this is the second agenda, guys. Third is tricks to fetch high marks and live practice so that you can apply what you learn. ठीक है, so here we will be discussing some tricks through which you can fetch high marks, and guys, you also have to live practice. ठीक है, as I already told you that this session is to be is all about participation. ठीक है, so you all have to participate so that मुझे भी मज़ा आएगा पढ़ाने में और आपको भी सीखने में बहुत मज़ा आएगा. ठीक है, सो चलिए जी, प्रोसीड करते हैं देन. So guys, here are the steps that we are going to follow, that we are going to adhere in this steps in this session, right? So number first is we will understand the framework to understand the question and identify the keywords. ठीक है, यहाँ पर ये सारी चीज़ें क्या हैं that we are going to discuss in detail. But first let us know. First guys, एक चीज़ आप समझे कि हम क्या हमारा जो शेड्यूल है वो होने वाला इस सेशन के लिए, क्या स्टेप्स हम फॉलो करने वाले हैं, राइट? देन सेकेंड, फ्रेमवर्क टू अंडरस्टैंड अ गुड इंट्रोडक्शन. ठीक है, उसके बाद वी विल अंडरस्टैंड द फ्रेमवर्क विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द गुड बॉडी इन एन आंसर. Then after that, last but not the least, we will be discussing about the framework to understand a good conclusion. Right friends? So ये हमारे जो steps हैं वो होने वाले हैं, that we are going to see, that we are going to follow in this session itself. What are the prerequisites? ठीक है, क्या prerequisites होने चाहिए guys? You must have notes with you. आपके पास एक कॉपी पेन होना चाहिए जिसमें आप चीज़ों को लिख सकें, ठीक है? या आपको चैट बॉक्स में भी पार्टिसिपेट करना है, वहीं पर मुझे पता चलेगा कि आप कि उस चीज़ को कैसे इंटरप्रेट कर रहे हैं. सो दैट मस्ट बी देयर. एंड गाइज आपको यहाँ पे लॉजिक लगाना है. सो लॉजिक आपको अप्लाई करना है सारी चीज़ों में. और अगर आपने इजीली लॉजिक अप्लाई कर लिया, इजीली आपने इन रूल्स एंड गाइडलाइंस को समझ लिया, सो बिलीव मी फ्रेंड्स, दिस इज़ वेरी वेरी ईजी एंड वेरी वेरी आई कैन से इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग. ऑब्जेक्टिव से ज़्यादा कहीं इंटरेस्टिंग है डिस्क्रिप्टिव आंसर राइटिंग. बट aspirants have phobia in their mind that they are not capable enough, that they have not written all these things, right? So that will be removed at the end of this session. ठीक है guys? So let's proceed. So components of an answer. So what are the components of an answer? So there are 4 components according to me, right? Number first is understanding the question. Number second is introduction. Number third is body. And number 4 is conclusion. ठीक है? This we all know. ये हमको बहुत अच्छी तरीके से पता है. दिस वी ऑल अंडरस्टैंड वेरी वेल. बट द थिंग इज कि हम इसको किस तरीके से इम्प्लीमेंट करते हैं. द क्वेश्चन, द चैलेंज, द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज इज ऑन द इम्प्लीमेंटेशन पार्ट, राइट? Theoretically, we all know very well that there are 3 or 4 components in an answer. That is understanding the question, introduction, body, conclusion. But when it comes to the implementation, more than 90% of the aspirants fail. ठीक है, और जो लोग पास हो जाते हैं, that is less than 10%, they go for interview. ठीक है, and further selection. ठीक है, so I hope you are getting it. So what are the guidelines, what are the rules related to these 4 points that we are going to see? So number first is guys framework to understand a question. So first of all we will understand how to understand a question. ठीक है, we will understand the framework, we will see the framework how to understand a question, right? So very first thing, understanding the question. So what do I mean by understanding the question? So whenever any question is asked from you, or whenever any question is there in front of you in the examination hall, so what do I mean by understanding the question? So there are 2 meanings of understanding the question. Number first is identify keywords. So whenever you see any question in the examination, the very first thing what you need to do is to identify keywords in the question, right? What do I mean by identifying keywords? That we will be discussing with the help of example. So second component in the understanding the question is micro questions, right? So when I'm talking about understanding the question, right? So what do I mean by understanding the question? Number first is identifying keywords, and number second is micro questions, right? इन दोनों का क्या मतलब है, that we are going to discuss with the help of example, right? So guys, let's first discuss identifying the keywords. So what do I mean by keywords? So guys, understand the question keywords. So what is keywords? Keyword is a word or concept of great significance. ठीक है? If suppose there is a question in front of you that monetary policy is not a panacea for India's long-term economic challenges. Suppose this question is there in the examination. So what you need to do first, you need to identify the keywords in the question. And what is the purpose of identifying the keywords, guys? कीवर्ड्स आइडेंटिफाई करने का पर्पस क्या है? उसका यही पर्पस है कि आपका जो आंसर है दैट विल बी कन्फाइंड अराउंड दोज कीवर्ड्स. ठीक है, उससे बाहर नहीं जाएगा, अदरवाइज दैट विल बी इररेलेवेंट आंसर. I hope you are getting it. So for example, if there is a question in the examination, monetary policy is not a panacea for India's long-term economic challenges, discuss. So what is the keyword here, guys? So here the keyword is monetary policy is not, right, a panacea for India's long-term economic challenges. So these all are the keywords in this question, right? So read the question carefully. The question is about monetary policy. So we are not supposed to discuss about the fiscal policy here. So that is why this is the keyword. And it is written that it is not a panacea. So we have to focus on that it is not a panacea. Though if you do not agree with the statement, if you think that monetary policy is a panacea, then guys, that is not wrong. But what is needed to be done? You need to justify that thing, right? So in descriptive answer writing, nothing is right, nothing is wrong as far as you are capable to justify your statement. ठीक है, तो आप जो भी लिख रहे हैं, if you are able to justify that, that is completely correct. ठीक है. So if you talk about keywords, so monetary policy is the keyword. Not is the keyword, since we are discussing that monetary policy is not a panacea for India's long-term economic challenge, right? So we have to focus on India's. ठीक है, आपको India पर focus करना है and not the global, right? So we have to focus on India's long-term economic challenges and not the short-term economic challenges. ठीक है, and that too economic challenges. ठीक है, बहुत सारे challenges हैं. Like India has social challenges also. ठीक है, so हमें economic challenges पर focus करना है. Now you are able to understand what do I mean by keywords. ठीक है, so here long term we are not supposed to discuss the short term. Here economic challenges are there. We are not supposed to discuss the social challenges. Rather economic challenges must be there. So this is the keyword, right? And after identifying the keyword, you just need to note it down in the rough sheet that is given to you in the examination hall. And you have to frame your answer around these keywords. ठीक है, आपका जितना ज़्यादा आंसर इन कीवर्ड्स के अराउंड होगा गाइज, उतना ज़्यादा आप क्लोज होंगे एकदम परफेक्ट आंसर की तरफ, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट आई मीन बाय द कीवर्ड. Now let us understand the second example. So second example is, guys, explain the comparative performance of public sector banks, new private sector banks and foreign banks in India after the introduction of reforms. Right? So guys, do let me know in the comment box what are the keywords in question number in this second example. Guys, you have to tell me what are the keywords in this particular example, in this particular question. Guys, do not hesitate in participation. Do participate. We do not have any provision of negative marking here. We do not have any provision of evaluation here. Guys, it is just for your practice so that you do not commit mistake in your actual examination, right? So this is the purpose of this session and you have to participate. ठीक है, जितना ज़्यादा आप पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे उतना ज़्यादा आपके लिए फ्रूटफुल होगा, उतना ज़्यादा आपके लिए बेनिफिशियल होगा. So guys, if I talk about the keywords in example number 2, so the keywords are comparative public sector banks, new private sector banks and foreign banks in India after the introduction of reforms, right? How it is so we have to mention the comparative performance. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पर we have to show the comparative performance. So this is the keyword here of किसका PSBs, public sector banks, new private sector banks and foreign banks India, right? So we are not supposed to write about the payments bank. ठीक है, payments bank के बारे में नहीं discuss करना है. Why? Because that is not mentioned in the question. What is mentioned in the question is the comparative performance of public sector banks, new private sector banks and foreign banks in India. So keep in mind these keywords. And guys, that too after the introduction of reforms. Which reforms? 1991 reforms, right? So we are not supposed to discuss anything about these banks before reforms. ठीक है, we are supposed to discuss, we are supposed to mention each and everything after the introduction of reforms. Now I hope you are getting it what I am trying to say. Why do we need to identify the keywords? This is why we need to identify the keywords, because by identifying the keywords, after identifying the keywords, we will get to know how we can frame our answer, what should be our structure with respect to this particular answer. So aspirants have written. So a lot of aspirants are writing. So very well guys. So okay, आप लोग काफ़ी लोग सही बता रहे हैं, but few of them are not able to get it. I think guys, try to understand किस तरीके से हमें आइडेंटिफाई करना है. कीवर्ड्स का मतलब ये नहीं है कि कीवर्ड्स कोई एक ही होगा. देयर कैन बी मल्टीपल कीवर्ड्स. ठीक है, जब मल्टीपल कीवर्ड्स होंगे तो आपको उसी के अराउंड चीज़ों को फ्रेम करना रहेगा. I hope you are getting it. ठीक है, like you can see in both the examples there are multiple keywords. ठीक है, so there may be multiple keywords in in a question, right? Now let's see the third question, guys. So the third question is, minimum support price of crops is a short-term solution for agricultural distress which creates long-term problems. Examine, suggest measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. So guys, do let me know what according to you are the keywords in this particular question, that is example number 3rd. So if I have to identify the keywords here, so my keywords will be minimum support price, right? Short term solution, agricultural distress, long-term problems and measures. So these all are the keywords around which I have to frame my answer. ठीक है, तो जितना ज़्यादा आपका आंसर क्लोज रहेगा इन keywords के, उतना ज़्यादा आप क्लोज रहेंगे बहुत ही ज़्यादा हाई मार्क्स अचीव करने के. Right, friends, I hope you are getting it. If you are getting it, do let me know in the comment chat box that yes, you are getting it, right, what I'm trying to say. Now guys, we have discussed the first component of understanding the question, that is identifying the keywords. Now let us discuss the second component under the understanding the question. So second component is identifying the micro questions. So this is very important. In the examination, more than 90% of the aspirants do not answer the complete question. ठीक है, पूरे complete question को answer नहीं करते हैं. That is why they are awarded less marks. ठीक है, and after declaration of result, we say generally that I have attempted the descriptive component very well, but the marks awarded are very less. Why this is so? Because you have not answered all the micro questions. That is why they have awarded you less marks. So this is very important, that you have to identify the micro questions hidden in the main question, right? So what are the micro questions, guys? Let's see. Let's understand with the help of example. So if suppose there is a question in the examination that highlight the salient features of the Union Budget 2013-14, right? So what are the micro questions in this question? So this is a quite straightforward question, right? So if I talk about micro question, so micro question itself is the main question, right? So what are the salient features of Union Budget 2013-14? So this is the straightforward question. So question may or may not have a hidden question in it, right? So we do not need to focus, we do not need to go too much deep into the question, so that we can, for the sake of creating the micro questions, right? I hope you are getting it, guys. So we have to identify if there is any hidden question inside it. So if we talk about this particular question, that is highlight the salient features of the Union Budget 2013-14. So this is a quite straightforward question in which only one question is to be answered, right? Second is, guys, here you can see another example that discuss the positive and negative implications of service sector growth in the process of economic development. So here, guys, you can see that here you can easily identify the two hidden questions, the two micro questions. Number first is, what are the positive implications of service sector growth in the process of economic development? And second is, what are the negative implications of service sector growth in the process of economic development, right? So in the examination, if suppose this question comes, then in that case, what majority of students, what majority of aspirants will do, they will answer these two questions only, that is positive implications and negative implications, right? But rest of the 10% question will also answer the third micro question. And what is the third micro question? The third micro question is, what has been the growth scenario of service sector? But now you may have question in your mind, sir, this is not specifically asked in the question, then why do we need to answer it? Guys, this is specifically asked. This is kind of implied question that is hidden inside the main question that you need to identify. So this is a challenge for you to identify this particular question, right? How I can identify this question? So guys, read the question carefully. When you read the question carefully, you will automatically get it, right? So if I'm reading this question that discuss the positive and negative implications of service sector growth, right? It means question is itself saying that there is a service sector growth in the economy. ठीक है, क्वेश्चन बोल रहा है कि सर्विस सेक्टर ग्रोथ इज देयर, सो वी हैव टू अज्यूम इट दैट यस देयर इज अ सर्विस सेक्टर ग्रोथ, एंड विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू दिस वी हैव टू मेंशन सम डेटा, वी हैव टू मेंशन सम सर्वे रिपोर्ट स्कीम्स, whatever, right? So we have to mention some data with respect to the service sector growth. So guys, for that you have to read the question carefully. We have a habit of reading a question in just a one go, ठीक है, without interpreting it, without understanding the question, and we just write what we know instead of what is being asked, ठीक है? So we have to write what is being asked and not what we know. So that we have to keep in mind, right? So this is how you can interpret the question. Let's understand this concept with the help of more example. So guys, here is the question again. Here is another example that explain the causes of India's rising sexual crime graph. What measures would you suggest to prevent the same? Suppose this question is there in the examination, right? So what you will do in that case, there you can easily identify two micro questions. What are the two micro questions that explain the causes of India's rising sexual crime graph, and what measures would you suggest to prevent the same. So these are two specifically asked micro questions inside the main question, and that is easily identifiable, right? But the challenge is to identify the third micro question. And what is the third micro question? That is India's rising sexual crime graph, right? So this is the third hidden question. So if I am talking about the micro question with respect to this main question, so what will be the micro questions according to me? So according to me, what are the facts and data justifying the rising sexual crime graph, right? So question itself saying that India's rising sexual crime graph, it means that India's sexual crime graph is rising, right? So I have to justify that with the help of data, with the help of facts. So this is first micro question. Initially I have to start my question from this micro question itself. After that I will go to the second question, that is causes of India's rising sexual crime graph, and after that I will go for the third micro question, that is measures to prevent the same, right? So guys, I hope you guys are understanding what I am trying to say. How you need to identify? For that you need to read the question two times or thrice, right? So twice or thrice you need to read the question, and you need to focus on the question, what question is saying. And after that you have to identify the keywords, you have to identify the micro questions, and after identifying the micro questions, guys, you have to answer all the micro questions. So this is a step that we need to follow. Another example, guys. So another example is minimum support price of crops is a short-term solution for agricultural distress which creates long-term problems. Examine, suggest measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. Suppose this is a question. So now what you need to do, you need to identify the keywords that we have already identified with respect to this question. Now we have to identify the micro questions, right? So what according to you will be the micro question in this particular main question? Guys, do let me know, do type in the chat box what are the micro questions in this main questions in this main question according to you. So guys, if I need to form the micro question from this particular main question, so what will be my question? My questions will be what is MSP and data related to. So I can also mention data related to it, right? So that is completely relevant. But the question is MSP. So first of all, I need to discuss about what is MSP. Then question is saying that minimum support price of crops is a short-term solution for agricultural distress. So guys, here this is the second micro question that is hidden in this question, right? Second micro question is why MSP is a short-term solution for agriculture distress. So here you can see that there is a hidden second micro question. Third micro question is which creates long-term problems. So guys, this is the third micro question. Though it seems like a general sentence, general statement, but in this statement there are three micro questions hidden that we need to identify, right? So third micro question is how MSP creates long-term problems. And guys, fourth question is specifically mentioned here, that suggest measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. So this is a specifically asked question that you can see, that you can easily identifying after going through the main question, right friends? But those more than 90% of the aspirants, what they will do if they encounter this particular question in the examination, they will simply answer this particular question only, that suggest measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. They simply answer this particular question, right? But we have to identify that if any statement is given in the question, we have to identify the hidden micro questions inside that statement, because nothing is given just for the sake of giving it. Rather, there are some agenda, there are some purposes with respect to any statement given in the examination, right? So this is how we can interpret this, right friends? Now let's move to understand this concept with the help of another example. So guys, here you can see another example. Banking industry has been grappling with NPAs in spite of so many steps being taken by the RBI and the government. Discuss, right? So guys, how we can identify the micro questions in this, and what are the micro questions? Do let me know, guys. Type in the chat box what are the micro questions according to you in this main question. Guys, you all have to participate, ठीक है? जैसे ही आप क्वेश्चन देखेंगे, you have to participate, you have to write it down. So आपको लाइव प्रैक्टिस भी होती जाएगी साथ साथ में, how you need to tackle that particular question, ठीक है? These question, if you do not have enough content with respect to any question, presentation matters, ठीक है? Presentation के through you can score maximum possible marks. So this is what you need to focus on, ठीक है? Now guys, according to me, what are the micro questions here? So first of all, data revealing how banking industry has been grappling with NPAs. Right? Why this is so? Because question itself saying, read the question carefully again. Banking industry has been grappling with NPAs. Okay? So the statement is saying that banking industry has been grappling with NPAs. So if you agree with the statement, so you need to discuss this sentence with the help of data that reveals how banking industry has been grappling with NPAs. Though we take this statement as for granted, but there is a hidden question inside this main inside this sentence itself, right? Second is, what are the steps taken by the Reserve Bank of India and the governor? So where this question is hidden, so this question is hidden here, like so many steps being taken by the RBI and the government. Right? Then third is, why banking industry has been grappling with NPAs. That we have to discuss. That this is what the question is, right? Banking industry has been grappling with NPAs, so we have to discuss why banking industry has been grappling with NPAs. So this is the third micro question. And number fourth is, what further steps need to be taken. Though this is not specifically asked, but guys, whenever you discuss about the challenges or about anything disadvantages, so you can mention some positive aspects with respect to that particular thing, right? You can mention, though it can be little brief. ठीक है, आपको यहाँ पे बहुत ही brief में ये चीज़ें आप mention कर सकते हैं. Do not need to elaborate it because that is not asked in the question. But if you write this particular thing in your answer, though briefly itself, so that will make a different impression in the mind of examiner, that he will understand that yes, you know this concept in its entirety, and that matters, and that he will give you the maximum possible marks that are being awarded for this particular question. Right guys, so I am happy guys, I am glad to see that you all guys are participating, you guys are writing in the chat box, so that is very well done guys, keep continuing. So guys, this is about identifying the keywords and micro questions. So now I hope that you guys are enough capable, you guys are able to understand how to identify the keywords and how to identify the micro questions, right? Now let's move to the second component, that is framework to understand a good introduction. Okay? Now we have to understand what are the framework with respect to the good introduction, right? We have read that there are 4 components: understanding the keywords and micro question, number first. Number second is understanding the good introduction. Number third is understanding the good body component in an answer, and number fourth is conclusion. So we have already covered first component. Now we are moving towards the second component, that is framework to understand a good introduction, right? But guys, the question is, what is the need of good introduction? What can be possible introduction, components of a good introduction, and examples of good, average and poor introduction. So this we are going to see in under this component, right? So the very first question is, what is the need of good introduction? ठीक है, अच्छे introduction की क्या ज़रूरत है हमें? So guys, you all must have heard that first impression is the last impression. ठीक है, I hope you all have heard about this. First impression is the last impression. So our introduction is our first impression to the on the examiner. ठीक है, so if examiner will read a poor introduction, irrespective of the fact that you have written the body component exclusively in a better manner, or you can say that आपने body component बहुत अच्छे से attempt किया हुआ है, right? But you have written very bad introduction. So what will examiner infer from that introduction? That he does not have any knowledge. ठीक है, he will consider that this particular aspirant does not have deep knowledge, does not have enough knowledge with respect to this question. ठीक है, so he will have the mindset. ठीक है, so guys, आपको examiner point of view से समझना है. ठीक है, try to understand with the help of try to understand from the examiner's point of view, right? If suppose you are an examiner and if you are having a bad answer, so what impression will you have with respect to that particular answer and with respect to that particular candidate? ठीक है, आपके मन में वो चीज़ें ऐसी हो जाएंगी, इसको ज़्यादा नॉलेज नहीं है, ठीक है, he is not capable, he is not enough to is not enough capable to understand the demand of the question, right? तो ये सारी चीज़ें एक नेगेटिव इंप्रेशन कहीं ना कहीं क्रिएट होगा एग्जामिनर के माइंड में, एंड दैट इज नॉट गुड एट ऑल for your selection, right? So this you need to keep in your mind that our introduction must be good. ठीक है, अगर इंट्रोडक्शन बहुत अच्छा होगा, then examiner will think about it that yes, this particular aspirant has a good knowledge, and he will read, he will have that mindset, and he will evaluate your entire copy by having that mindset itself, and this will lead to award. This will lead to award of highest possible marks with respect to that particular question. right? So that this is why we need to write our introduction in a better manner, right friends? And guys, also try to understand one thing, that examiner is being paid, ठीक है, examiner is being paid for every copy. So if you make his task easier, ठीक है, अगर आप बहुत अच्छे तरीके से if you are presenting your answer, so you are making his task easier, right? And when you are making his task easier, so what you are doing, you are helping him to earn more amount of money, because he do not need to put too much effort. He does not need to put too much effort for in your evaluation, right? So if you are able to make his task easier, so he will definitely award you हाईएस्ट पॉसिबल मार्क्स, ठीक है? कोई भी इंसान जो आपका काम आसान कर रहा है गाइज, और आपको हेल्प कर रहा है कि आप ज़्यादा पैसे कमा सकते हैं, सो डेफिनेटली आप उसके साइड भी कुछ फेवर करेंगे, राइट? दैट इज़ अ ह्यूमन टेंडेंसी, ठीक है, एक ह्यूमन टेंडेंसी है. सिमिलर इज द केस विद द एग्जामिनेशन ऑल्सो, ठीक है? इफ़ यू आर मेकिंग द टास्क ऑफ एग्जामिनर ईजी, सो ही विल डेफिनेटली अवॉर्ड यू, right, highest possible marks, because he is not able, because he does not need to put too much efforts in the evaluation of your copy, right? So guys, this is why we need to write our introduction in a better manner. Now what can be a possible introduction that we are going to understand? So guys, here you can see what can be the possible types of introduction. So it can be fact, data, like for example, if I am discussing some data related to GDP growth, data related to NPAs, data related to fraud, so that is one type of a possible introduction, right? Second possible type of introduction can be definition. If you are defining something, so that can also be incorporated in your introduction part. Then recent context, if you have started your introduction with the help of current affairs, or you are mentioning some current issues in your introduction, so that is again one type of possible introduction. Then quoting real life example or giving real life example in your introduction is again one type of introduction, right? So these all are the types of introduction that you can incorporate in your answer, right friends? So what are the possible types of introduction that we have already see? अब ये सारे कहाँ applicable हो सकते हैं, that we need to see, right? So here you can see, if I talk about fact, data type of introduction, so where it can be applied. So suppose question is, banking industry has been grappling with NPAs in spite of so many steps being taken by the Reserve Bank of India and the government. Suppose this is a question. So what can be the I can say that what can be the best type of introduction that can be incorporated for this kind of question? This is fact, data, right? So if you are mentioning some fact related to NPAs in this question in the introduction, so that will be completely relevant and the best type of introduction. I am not saying that if you are mentioning these, so that will be wrong, right? But what is the more relevant one? The more relevant one will be part the first one, that is fact and data, and also the current affairs one, okay? But if you are quoting real life example, or if you are giving the definition of NPA, so that is not relevant with respect to this question. So that you have to identify that which one of them is relevant with respect to any particular question, right? Now if we talk about recent current affairs one, so suppose if question is, recent meeting of monetary policy committee has focused to give priority to inflation over growth, examine, right? So here we have seen that question is about recent meeting of MPC. Now you should introduce at the current affairs portion in the introduction itself, right? Because the question is itself related to current issues, right guys? So this you have to identify after reading the question, that which type of introduction I can incorporate for this particular question, right? Third is real life example. Suppose question is, role of NGOs have been very crucial in ensuring education to the last mile examine, ठीक है? तो यहाँ पे you can give the real life example of any NGO who has been playing a crucial role in ensuring education to the last mile. So you can give the example of that particular NGO, right? So here you can mention in the introduction the real life example. Again, the context you have to understand after reading the question itself, and then you have to write the introduction. Now last but not the least, what is inflation? Explain its causes. So here you can see that the definition of inflation, the meaning of inflation is specifically asked. So here you have to introduce the question with the help of definition itself, right guys? So you, after reading the question, you have to identify, you have to understand which type of introduction you can incorporate in this particular question, in the introduction of this particular question, right? So how you can able to identify that? For that you have to practice a lot, right? ठीक है, आपको बहुत सारी प्रैक्टिस करनी है, और जितनी ज़्यादा आप प्रैक्टिस करेंगे उतना ज़्यादा आप यहाँ पर कैपेबल हो जाएंगे चीज़ों को आइडेंटिफाई करने में कि व्हाट काइंड ऑफ इंट्रोडक्शन कैन बी पुट फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर इंट्रोडक्शन, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ इंट्रोडक्शन फॉर पुट फॉर दिस काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चन, सो यू विल बी एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई दैट। ठीक है, अगर आप सोचेंगे कि आप एक सेशन अटेंड करके यू विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड, सो दैट इज गाइज कंप्लीट अ बिग मिसकंसेप्शन इन योर माइंड। ठीक है, फॉर दैट व्हाट यू नीड टू डू, यू नीड टू प्रैक्टिस अलॉट, राइट एटलीस्ट 2 आंसर्स डेली। ठीक है फ्रेंड्स, you have around 20 days for phase 2 examination, so guys try to write at least 2 answers daily। ठीक है, at least 2 answers आप daily लिखिए, you will see the improvement in the actual examination if you continuing do so for 18 to 20 days, for next 18 to 20 days you will see the confidence level, you will see the improvement in your answer writing in the actual examination itself, right? Now let's move guys, so what are the components of a good introduction? So here you can see relevant to question। ठीक है, so there must be a relevance, so whatever you are writing, whatever introduction you are giving, that must be relevant, right, with respect to the question asked। number second is 10 to 12% of word limit, that there must be a conciseness part। ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं है कि if suppose 400 words question is there in the examination और 100 से 150 words का आपने वहां पर क्या कर दिया, सिर्फ इंट्रोडक्शन ही लिख दिया, राइट। सो दैट इंट्रोडक्शन मस्ट बी 10 to 12% ऑफ वर्ड लिमिट, राइट फ्रेंड्स। तो ये चीज़ें आपको ध्यान रखनी, देयर मस्ट बी अ कंसाइजनेस फैक्टर इन द इंट्रोडक्शन इटसेल्फ। नंबर थर्ड इज कनेक्टिंग लाइन विथ बॉडी। ठीक है, देयर मस्ट बी अ इंटरलिंकिंग बिटवीन इंट्रोडक्शन एंड बॉडी एंड कंक्लूजन, राइट। सो देयर मस्ट बी इंटरलिंकिंग, योर आंसर मस्ट बी इन अ फ्लो। ठीक है, आपका आंसर पूरा फ्रॉम बॉडी, फ्रॉम इंट्रोडक्शन टू कंक्लूजन एक फ्लो होना चाहिए आपके आंसर में। एंड हाउ यू कैन मेंटेन दैट फ्लो, by mentioning the connecting line, that is by creating a interlinking between different components of an answer, right? So guys, if I talk about number first, that is relevant to the question, so you can see the question that we have just covered, this one, the question number first here, that like banking industry has been grappling with NPAs in spite of so many steps being taken by the RBI and government. If suppose in this particular question you start writing introduction by giving the definition of NPAs, so that will make your introduction irrelevant, right? Because in the context of this question there is no need to mention the definition of NPAs, and that you need to understand that what is the best possible introduction, right? So that this is what relevant and irrelevant you can make your introduction, right? So this is what I mean the term relevance here, right? So you have to understand the demand of the question and accordingly you have to give the introduction, so you have to make your introduction relevant one, right? So these are the 3 components of introduction. Now guys, here you can see, here we are taking an example. So here you can see the dark clouds of non-performing assets are looming over the banks in India. Comment. Also discuss the reasons for NPA in India and suggest the way forward to tackle the menace of NPA, right? Suppose this is a question here, right? And now you being an aspirant, if suppose I am writing this particular introduction, that non-performing assets or NPAs are the credits advanced by financial institutions on which they have not received any interest or principal payment for more than 90 days. These are stressed assets which affect the balance sheets of the banks and their profitability. So this is an example of poor introduction, right? Why? Because this is irrelevant, right? If you read what you have done here, we have simply read a word here from that is NPAs, and we have just mentioned the meaning, we have just mentioned the definition of NPAs. We are not trying to understand what question is saying, right? So we have to identify that what question is saying, and after that we have to attempt. So this is completely a irrelevant introduction, and this is called the poor introduction. This is an example of poor introduction. So what can be the good introduction with respect to this particular question? So here you can see the example of good introduction, right? I'm not saying that this is the best introduction. Introduction can be made much better, but this is a kind of good introduction. So here you can see, as per the 22nd Financial Stability Report released by Reserve Bank of India, it is projected that under the normal baseline scenario, non-performing assets of the Indian banks will rise to 13.5% September 2021, and in extreme case the NPA figure can rise to alarming level of 14.8%. This will be all-time high levels in history of Indian banking. Thus, dark cloud of NPAs are looming over the Indian banking industry. Let us see what are the reasons for such high levels along with the remedies to control them. So guys, here you can see that here I have mentioned the name of the report. Here I have mentioned the data related to that, the month also, right? So this is called the good introduction, right? And this is also concise one. And here you can see that I am mentioning I am creating a link between the introduction and the body. So what is that link? The link is this particular sentence, that is, let us see what are the reasons for such high levels along with remedies to control them, right? So after reading this particular line, what examiner will get? Examiner will get to know that now what he is going to do next, what he is going to discuss next, right? So this makes a flow in your answer from introduction till conclusion. I hope you are getting it. So this is very, very important, guys. That is why I have made it bold, so that you can understand that there must be link between the introduction and body and conclusion, right? Otherwise, what aspirants generally do, they write introductions on something else and they suddenly jump to other topic and they start mentioning some other thing in the body component, and in conclusion is completely different from the rest of the topic what we have discussed in the introduction and the body component, right? So this we should avoid. This we must avoid. What we need to do, we need to create a link, and also we need to answer what is being asked. And how we can do that? We can do that by identifying the keywords and also identifying the micro questions, right? If we are doing these two things, so these two things will help us to be on track, to write an answer what is to write the answer of the question what is being asked, and not what we know with respect to that topic, right? So guys, I hope you are able to understand, right? Now guys, let's understand the example number 2 also. So example number 2, the question is, what role can the e-commerce sector play in the growth of MSME in India? What are the constraints faced by the e-commerce sector in India? What measures can be taken to enable rapid and sustainable growth of this sector, right? So here you can see I'm directly discussing the good introduction that we can write with respect to this particular question. So e-commerce is the usage of technology to trade goods and services in the economy. You may avoid this particular sentence also, but here I have mentioned it so that it can be easily understood that we understand the meaning of e-commerce, right? So with the advancements in the technologies like fintech, faster payment methods, the MSMEs have a fantastic opportunity to grab a pie in this rising trade. For example, Amazon has tied up with Maharashtra to support the MSMEs of the state. However, e-commerce sector faces several constraints which, if removed, will help in the faster growth of the broader Indian economy, right? So here I have mentioned the name of Amazon also. Here I have mentioned, here I've discussed, here I've given the introduction what is being demanded, right? And not what I know. And at the last, guys, you can see here that I have mentioned a sentence that is creating a link between the introduction and the body. So here you can see that let us discuss the opportunities for MSMEs in context of e-commerce followed by constraints to realize the same, and measures that can be taken to enable rapid growth of MSMEs. Now after reading this line, examiner will get to know that what I am going to discuss next. I am going to discuss next the opportunities for MSME in context of e-commerce, and after that I will be discussing about the constraints to realize the same, and after that I will be discussing about the measures that can be taken to enable rapid growth of MSMEs. So this is the whole agenda that I am going to cover in my answer. So examiner will get to know, and after once examiner will get to know, he will also get to know that I am enough capable, I am able to identify the micro question, and I will answer all the micro questions sequentially, right? So he will get to know, and once he will get to know, his mindset, the impression of our answer, or the impression of that particular aspirant in the mind of examiner will be different. And what is the result of that impression? The result is the award of higher marks, right? I hope you are getting it. So guys, this we have understood the framework to understand a good introduction. Now we are moving to understand the framework to understand a good body in answer writing, right? So guys, till yet, if anyone is having any doubt, do let me know. If everything is clear, type yes in the chat box. ठीक है, अगर सब कुछ अच्छा चल रहा है गाइस, सब कुछ समझ में आ रहा है, then type yes in the chat box so that we can proceed to understand a good body in answer writing. Now guys, if we talk about body component, right? So if we talk about body component, so there are 6 things that you need to keep in your mind when we talk about the body. So number first is addresses all micro questions. So we need to address all micro questions, right? Second is there must be a logical flow. Number third is insert statistics, examples and case studies. Then use a mix of paragraphs and points, and use subheadings. Then headings conveying ideas properly, and relation between problems and solutions. What are these components that we will understand with the help of example, right? ठीक है, तो चलिए. So first of all, let's start with the point number 1, that is addresses all micro questions. So guys, here you can see the question is minimum support price of crops is a short-term solution for agricultural distress which creates long-term problems. Examine, suggest measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. Suppose this is a question in the examination of your phase 2 NABARD Grade A 2022 examination on 29th October, right? Suppose if you encounter this particular question. Now what are the micro questions here? So the very first point that we have to discuss is that we have to address all the micro questions. Now you have to identify the micro question in this particular question, right? So if suppose I answer problems associated with the MSP and measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. So most of the aspirants do what? Most of the aspirants will do these two things. They will answer these two question itself, right? So that is not a good strategy. So what is the issue here? It does not answer all micro questions. So this is the issue here, that this answer does not answer all the micro question. So what can be done? So this is what can be done, right? So here you can see that here we have answered all the micro questions. So first micro question was MSP. What is MSP? That we have already discussed in the introduction part. Now if we are talking about the body component, so here I am discussing the first micro question, that is how MSP is a short-term solution for agricultural distress. After that I am discussing the second micro question, that is how MSP creates long-term problems. This is second micro question. And as far as third micro question is concerned, so third micro question is suggest measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. So here you can see that this is the third micro question. So this is the best strategy that you can follow, that first of all you need to identify all the micro questions, write it down on the rough sheet that is given to you in the examination hall, and after that you have to answer all the micro questions sequentially, right? So through this way you will do the thing that you will maintain a flow in your answer, as well as you will answer all the micro questions in the answer in the particular main question, and that will lead to award of maximum possible marks. ठीक है जी. Second component is logical flow. So there must be a logical flow. This is the second component that we have just read. So what do I mean by logical flow? So here you can see that though I have answered all the micro questions here, you can see that number first I have answered how my MSP is a short-term solution for agricultural distress, how MSP creates long-term problems, measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. So I have answered all the micro questions, right? But what is missing here? Logical flow is missing here, right guys? Logical flow is missing here. Because here you can see that after answering this particular question, that is how MSP is a short-term solution for agriculture distress, I am suddenly jumping to the another question, that is how MSP creates long-term problems. So that is not good, right? I have to maintain a link between these two components. So there must be a logical flow, right? Even there must be a link between introduction and body, and also between different components under the body itself, right? Different points between the different points of the body component itself. Okay, so there must be a flow. So I'm not making any flow between this question and this question. I'm not making any flow between this question and this question. So logical flow is missing in this particular question. So here you can see flow is missing. So this is the issue with this question, right? So what can be done with respect to that? So here you can see that same thing I'm doing here also, that I am answering three micro questions, right? Number first is how MSP is a short-term solution for agricultural distress. So I have mentioned this here. But what I am doing, I am writing a sentence that is creating a link between this particular question and this particular question. And what is that sentence? That you can read that, but this mechanism is not immune from problems, rather witnessing long-term problems. So here you can see that I have created a link between question number 1 and question number 2. Now after reading this, examiner will get to know that yes, I am going to discuss the long-term problems now after discussing the short-term solution. He will get to know after reading this. And also here what I have done, I have made a flow in the answer itself, right? So this is what you need to do in the examination, that you need to create a flow. You need to make your answer in a flow so that you can get maximum possible marks, right? And you can here see after answering the second question, how MSP creates long-term problems, I have mentioned again one line here. for this for creating a link between the question number 2 and question number 3. So here you can see that therefore there is a need to take measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. Here I have discussed long-term problems, and I am simultaneously saying that we have discussed it. Now therefore there is a need to take measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime. So here I am creating a link between question number 2 and question number 3. After that, examiner will get to know that after this particular question, now what I am going to discuss, I am going to discuss the measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime, right? So here after that I will discuss the third question. So I hope you guys are getting it, how you can make your answer in a logical flow, how you can make a flow in your answer. So this is how you can make a flow, how you can create a linking between different components of your answer, right? Okay, friends, so I hope you are getting it. Now guys, third is data and examples, right? So guys, you have to use a lot of data, a lot of examples, as much as you can. Okay, here you can see the same question. Here I am answering that how MSP creates a long-term problems, and I have mentioned 3 points under this particular question, right? So these all seems generic point, very generic point. Why? Because I have not mentioned any data here, I have not mentioned any examples here, right? So that is why these statements seems like a generic one. Okay, these are very generic, they seem very generic one, right? Because I have not mentioned anything here. But what would be the best strategy here? So here you can see data and examples are missing. This is the issue, right? So for these kind of explanation, you will get average marks, right? You will get average marks that are provided for that particular question. But we are not here to get the average marks. Rather, we are here to get the highest possible marks that are being awarded for that particular question, right? So here what we can do here, so we can do that same points that we have just discussed. I have mentioned the same points, but now what we are doing, we are mentioning some examples, we are mentioning some data. Like for example, the question is how MSP creates a long-term problem. So here I have mentioned point regional imbalance. So here I am giving the example of eastern states, right? Right friends, eastern states, northeastern states. So here I am giving the example of these. In second points, degradation of agriculture ecosystem, I am mentioning example that rice, despite being unsuitable for growth in Punjab and Haryana, semi-arid regions, is widely grown there. This has led to deterioration of groundwater table. So I am giving example here. In point number 3, I am mentioning some data. The name of the committee, like the Shanta Kumar committee, formed to suggest restructuring of the Food Corporation of India in 2015. In its report, had stated that only 6% of the MSP could be received by the farmers, which directly means that 94% of the farmers in the country are deprived from the benefit of the MSP, right? So here you can see guys that this, what being an examiner, suppose if you are an examiner and if you get 2 copies, in one copy you will see these kind of explanations, and in second copy you will see these kind of explanations. So to which copy you will award highest possible marks? Definitely this one, right? Why? Because he is using examples also, he is using the name of committee, he is using the data also. So that means whatever he is writing, he is justifying that thing, right? We are not using generic statement, we are not writing generic statement. Rather, whatever we are writing, we are giving evidence, we are substantiating that with the help of example as well as data. Okay, so this is about the point number 4th. Point number 5th is point number 4th is that is paragraphs, points, subheading. So there will be paragraphs, there may be paragraphs, point and subheadings in the answer, right? So that is not mandatory guys. Those who are writing, those who are following paragraph wala format, that is completely good. Those who are following heading subheading wala format, points wala format, that is also completely good. Okay, so there is nothing wrong in it, but try to understand one thing, that if you are writing anything here, so here you are seeing that this is, it is quite difficult for me being an examiner, it is difficult for me to read the entire statement, right? Try to understand the human tendency. I'm not saying, I'm not challenging anything that this is wrong approach or points wala format is right approach. I am just trying to say that try to understand the human tendency. ठीक है? So being an examiner, as you all know that examiner जो होगा वो भी एक human being है, right? So being a human, what you need to do being an examiner, if you see these kind of explanations, what you need to do, you need to read the entire answer, because you are not getting, if you are reading 2 or 3 words of any sentence, you are not getting what being an aspirant I'm trying to say, right? So for that we need to, being an examiner, we need to read the entire statements. This is one thing, right? Second thing is, if you see these kind of explanation in the answer, so what we need to do is, being an examiner, if I see that insurance is, the question is how MSP creates long term problems, and if you are an aspirant and if you have written in this way that insurance not remuneration, benefiting only small proportion of farmers, degradation of agriculture ecosystem, so try to understand, being an examiner, do I need to read the entire explanation under this? I will get to know after reading the headings itself that what aspirants is trying to say, sorry, right? So once I read the heading that insurance, it is an insurance and not remuneration, MSP is benefiting only small proportion of farmers, ठीक है, it is leading to degradation of agriculture ecosystem. So now, being an examiner, I will get to know that he has the knowledge of the question and he has written it very well. Now I do not need to read its explanation, and when I do not need to read explanation, that means we are I एम नॉट गोइंग टू आइडेंटिफाई टू मच मिस्टेक्स इन अवर आंसर, ठीक है, क्योंकि हम आंसर में बहुत सारी ग्रामेटिकल मिस्टेक्स भी करते हैं, पंक्चुएशन मार्क्स वाली मिस्टेक्स भी करते हैं. सो इन ऑर्डर टू अवॉइड दोज मिस्टेक्स, इफ यू आर यूजिंग हेडिंग वाला फॉर्मेट, सो देर इज अ प्रोबेबिलिटी दैट बीइंग एन एग्जामिनर आपका पूरा आंसर ना पढ़ा जाए, राइट, व्हाट दे विल रीड द हेडिंग्स ओनली. So there is a probability, right? So I think this is the better format, but again I'm saying guys, I am giving the disclaimer that both approach is correct, पैराग्राफ वाला भी और पॉइंट्स वाला भी, राइट, कोई भी इसमें गलत नहीं है. आप जो भी फॉलो करते हैं आप वही फॉलो करें. अगर आपको लगता है कि आप पैराग्राफ वाला सही है, आप उसको फॉलो करें. आई एम जस्ट गिविंग एन एग्जांपल, आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू analyze the things from the human tendency point of view, right? Otherwise everything is good. Now next is heading conveying ideas properly. So this is the fifth point. That one of the rule of body component is, one of the guideline of body component is heading conveying ideas properly. What do I mean by that? So suppose there is a question, how MSP creates a long term problem. Suppose if I am addressing this particular micro question, right, and I am using heading wala format also in the body component. So I am giving the heading cropping pattern, agricultural ecosystem, small proportion of farmers, right? So being an examiner, if I am reading these headings, so I'm not able to identify what is the problem in these particular points. Like for example, the question is how MSP creates long-term problems, and if you have written cropping pattern, so after reading the word cropping pattern, I'm not able to understand how it is a challenge, how it is a long-term problem. After reading agriculture ecosystem, I'm not able to understand how agricultural ecosystem is being affected, or how there is a problem, there is a long-term problem with respect to the agricultural ecosystem. A small proportion of farmers, what do I mean by small proportion of farmers, right? What I'm trying to say, so that is a vague statement, that is a vague headings I can say. So headings should convey ideas properly. Whatever I am trying to say, that should be conveyed properly, right? So if I am saying that it is a problem, so our headings should seem like a problem, okay? So whatever heading I am giving, that should seem like a problem. Yes, this is a problem. So again, after reading that particular heading, being an examiner, I will get to know, yes, this is a problem, this is a solution, right? So that I will get to know. I hope you are getting it. So here what is missing? Heading is not conveying the ideas properly. So what can be the better approach of answering this thing? So here you can see that the question is how MSP creates long-term problem. Same headings I have used, but I have inclined my headings towards the problems. Like for example, I have given the heading distortion of cropping pattern. So now it is a problem, right? It seems like a problem. So when I am saying that how MSP creates a long-term problem, it is creating a long-term problem because it is distorting the cropping patterns. Now it seems like a problem, right? Second one, degradation of agricultural ecosystem. So now it seems like a problem. Yes, this is a problem. It benefits only small proportion of farmer. Yes, this is a problem. So our heading should convey the idea properly, and our heading should seem like a problem. If we are discussing problem, if we are discussing solution, so our heading should seem like a solution, right? So that after reading the headings itself, I will get to know that what you are trying to say in the explanation, and for that I do not need to read the entire explanation. Why? Because I am being paid for every copy, and if I have an opportunity to earn more, why do I need to spend? Why would I not, right? I will definitely go for higher earnings. So for that purpose I will evaluate it इन अ फास्टर वे, ठीक है? और उस चीज़ को ईजी बनाना है, आपका काम है. किस तरीके से हम ईजी बना सकते हैं, इस तरीके से हम ईजी बना सकते हैं चीज़ों को बेटर वे में प्रेजेंट करके, राइट गाइस? आई एम डिस्कसिंग दोज थिंग्स दैट जनरली स्टूडेंट्स अवॉइड करते हैं, स्किप कर देते हैं, उनके माइंड में चीज़ें होती हैं बट कहीं ना कहीं हम इन चीज़ों पर ध्यान नहीं देते हैं. वी आर डिस्कसिंग दोज थिंग्स, राइट? ह्यूमन टेंडेंसीज के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर. सो दैट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड, ठीक है? ऑलवेज थिंक फ्रॉम द एग्जामिनर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. ठीक है, so that you can better present your answer. So I hope you are getting it this point also. Number last body में number 6th, the last one, the rule, the guideline with respect to the body, that is relation between problems and solution. So there must be a relation between problem and solution. What do I mean by that? Suppose again the same question, how MSP creates long-term problems, right? So we have discussed 2 points, that is distortion of cropping pattern and regional imbalance, right? But when we are talking about measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime, so we are saying cooperative federalism and payment mechanism. So guys, there must be a relation between problems and solutions, right? If suppose in a same question there are the question is about problems and giving solutions, and we are giving some problems and we are giving some solutions, so that must be in alignment, right? That must be in a sync. So whatever problems I am giving, we should try to give the solution in the solution component, right? So here you can see that question in the problem wale component we have discussed that there are distortion of cropping pattern, regional imbalance, but when we are talking about measures, so we are discussing something else, so that should be avoided. ठीक है, हमें उसी का आंसर करना जो प्रॉब्लम हमने खुद बताई हुई है, ठीक है? तो what is issue here? No relation between problem and solution. What can be the better approach here? So here you can see the question is how MSP creates long-term problem. So distortion of cropping pattern, regional imbalance, so these all are the long-term problems. And when I'm talking about measures to overcome the limitations of the MSP regime, so here you can see I'm saying the diversification, so increase the scope of procurement under MSP regime. So here you can see I have answered the first one, and it should not be restricted to a particular region or particular crops. So here I am giving the regional imbalance, right? So here you can see that I am mentioning some problems, and also I am giving some measures, some solution that can be undertaken with respect to those problems. I hope you are getting it. So there must be a relation between problems and solutions. These are those minute things which can help you to clear this examination, to clear this written descriptive component, right? These are very, very important guidelines, guys, and if you incorporate these guidelines in your answer, you can see your marks whenever the result is declared, right? So I hope you are getting it, guys. So this is about the body component. Now let us move to understand the framework to understand a good conclusion. ठीक है, किस तरीके से हम एक अच्छा conclusion लिख सकते हैं, that we need to understand. So guys, conclusion in descriptive writing. ठीक है, so why do we need to write a good conclusion? What are the outline of conclusion? Tips and parameters for good conclusion and examples of good, average and poor conclusion that we are going to cover. राइट फ्रेंड्स. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल व्हाई डू वी नीड टू राइट अ गुड कंक्लूजन? ठीक है, हमने देख लिया अच्छा इंट्रो होना चाहिए, बिकॉज दैट मेक्स अ गुड इंप्रेशन इन द माइंड ऑफ एग्जामिनर, एंड ही विल रीड अवर आंसर एंड ही विल अवॉर्ड अस द मैक्सिमम पॉसिबल मार्क्स, राइट? कंक्लूजन में बेसिकली हमारा एक आउटलुक पता चलता है, हमारा एक पर्सपेक्टिव पता चलता है, दैट what stand we are taking with respect to that particular issue that is being asked in the form of question. What is our stand, what is our opinion, what is our perspective? So that is shown in the conclusion wale component mein. That is why we need to give conclusion. ठीक है, here at EduTab we evaluate a lot of copies. ठीक है, we evaluate a lot of descriptive answer writing copies, and what we see, we generally observe one similar pattern, that a lot of aspirants do not write conclusion, they skip conclusion. So guys, do remember in your mind that you have to write conclusion every time. ठीक है, आप जब भी आंसर लिखेंगे you have to conclude it, irrespective of the fact that you are not able to understand what you should write. You should write at least something, but you have to write the conclusion. You cannot skip any component. The component that we have discussed, you should not skip, you must not skip, guys, right? Guys, so you have to write the conclusion. So what is the need of good conclusion? That shows our perspective, our opinion with respect to that issues, the issue that is being asked in the form of question. So that is why there is a need to write a good conclusion. ठीक है? Then what is the outline of a conclusion? What are the tips and parameters, and what are the examples that we are going to cover? So guys, here you can see the conclusion outline, right? So how you can conclude any particular question. So here suppose question is, should students be allowed to have cell phones in elementary school? So here suppose this is a question that is asked in the examination, right? So what are the outline of conclusion, how you can approach the conclusion for this particular question? So here you can see that conclusion is divided into 3 parts. Number first is conclusion starter, supporting sentences and closing sentences, right? So if I am talking about concluding starter, so here what do I mean by conclusion starter? So here fresh rephrasing of thesis statement. And what is the thesis statement? That is, should student be allowed to have a cell phones in an elementary school? So this is a thesis statement that I need to rephrase it. So what I am rephrasing it here, though cell phone would be convenient for after school, there is too much evidence to show that it's generally not a good idea. So suppose here, so here you can see that I am taking a particular stand here, because question is about having our perspective, right, having our opinion with respect to the giving cell phones in elementary school. So here I am taking a stand that it is not a good idea. So this is what fresh rephrasing of the thesis statement, right? Number second is supporting sentences. What do I mean by supporting sentences? So here we need to summarize or wrap up the main points in the body and explain how ideas fit together. So whatever whatever my opinion is with respect to the question, the thesis statement, I have to give supporting sentences with respect to that particular stand that we have taken, right? We will understand it with the help of example. So here you can see that I am saying here that though cell phone would be convenient for after school, there is too much evidence to show that it's generally not a good idea, right? So here I have taken a stand. This is my opinion with respect to giving cell phones to the students in elementary school, and here I am giving evidence, or I can say I am giving my opinion. I am supporting it. I am supporting this particular opinion. So here you can see that children already have a lot of access to media, on average over 7 hours per day, and it is the parents' responsibility to monitor the media access, which is more difficult if the child has exclusive cell phone access. Cyberbullying, which is increasingly becoming a problem, is also going to be a risk when your child has unlimited access to a smartphone, right? So here I am giving evidence, I am giving supporting sentence with respect to this particular stand that I have taken in a conclusion starter, right? Now I hope you are getting it. Number third is closing sentence. So what is closing sentence, guys? Closing sentence is providing solution to end on positive note. So here closing sentence is further divided into 3 parts. Guys, it may seem difficult to you that there are too many things that you need to remember, but when you practice and when you try to incorporate all these points that we have discussed today, so guys, believe me, after writing 3 to 4 answers, you will, that these all things will automatically set in your subconscious mind, and after 4 to 5 answers you will automatically incorporate these points in your answer, right? And that will, the result, the outcome of this you can see in your actual examination, right? So after this session you can get the PDF of this session also. You can go through this session, and also you can watch the video again if you are not able to understand some points. ठीक है जी? So closing sentence, if I talk about closing sentence, guys, so here you can see closing sentence is further divided into 3 parts. So number first is if I am providing solution to end on positive note, or I can giving further steps, or I am I am creating a provocative question, or I am answering this particular question, why should we care? I hope you are not able to understand this one. Let us understand with the help of example, right? So suppose I have given the conclusion starter, I have given the supporting sentence, as now we are moving towards closing sentence. So what do I need to do in a closing sentence? So I need to adopt any one of 3. That is solution, provocative question, or answering this particular question, that why should we care. So in this particular question I am answering this, right? I am adopting this closing sentence, that why should we care. So why should we care? Because children are the future of our country, and giving them cell phones at elementary level can be disastrous. That is why we should care, and here I have closed my sentence, right? I can close this particular discussion by giving solution that is ending on positive note, or also by creating a provocative question, but that is up to me, that is up to my understanding. After reading this particular question, after reading the thesis statement, I will have to decide which one of the closing sentence I have to adopt for this particular question, right? And when it will how you will be able to identify, guys, you will be able to identify this when you practice a lot. That I have already told you that for that you have to practice a lot. ठीक है? जितना ज़्यादा आप प्रैक्टिस करेंगे उतना ज़्यादा ये चीज़ें आपके मन में क्लियर होती जाएंगी कि that for this particular question what closing sentence I need to adopt, for this particular question what kind of introduction can be written, ठीक है, जो हमने डिस्कस किया था स्टार्टिंग में. So these things will come when you practice a lot. ठीक है? That is why I am saying that practice is the key to success. Now let us understand with the help of example. So here you can see, guys, the same thing that we have just discussed. So here you can see that the question was, should students be allowed to have a cell phones in elementary school? Here I have answered the closing sentence, why should we care, right? Now the conclusion starter and supporting ideas are same that we have just discussed. Now here I am giving solution, right? The first one, We have seen that in a closing sentence there are three parts, that either I am providing solution, or I am creating a provocative question, or I am answering this particular question, that why should we care. So we have already answered this particular question, why should we care. Now we are closing this particular question by providing solution. So here you can see clearly elementary school aged children are not emotionally mature enough to handle the responsibility of a smartphone, and the borrowings of a parent's cell phone should be highly monitored to ensure safe and healthful usage. So here I am providing solution that it should be highly monitored to ensure safe and healthful usage. So this is another way to close this particular question, right? Another way is creating a provocative question here. So you can see that these two parts are same that we have discussed. Now here I am giving my closing sentence with the help of provocative question, and what it can be, it can be clearly elementary school aged children are not emotionally mature enough to handle the responsibility of a smartphone. So would you prefer convenience or safety of your child? So all the three are correct, right? I have given this one also, I have given this one also, and this one also. So all of them are correct. Now I have to decide which one I am going to adopt for this particular question, right? And how I am able to identify it? I am able to identify it when I practice a lot. Okay guys, I hope you are getting it. This we have already discussed. Why should we care? That children are the future of our country, and giving them a cell phones at elementary level can be disastrous, right? And guys, when you write the conclusion, so it should not be like, आपको ऐसे नहीं लिखना कि conclusion, starter, supporting ideas, closing sentence. You are not supposed to write in this way in the examination. Rather it should be like this. ठीक है, एक पैराग्राफ में ये आपका पूरे तरीके से सारे सेंटेंस को you have to merge and you have to write it in such a way. ठीक है, आपको एक पैराग्राफ में इसको merge कर देना है, right? So this is a conclusion that you need to write in your examination, right friends? Am I making sense? Now second example guys, you can see that banks are still grappling with NPAs in spite of so many steps being taken by RBI and government. This question we have discussed. So what can be the conclusion, right? So here first of all, in conclusion starter, here what we can write: no doubt the banks are still grappling with NPAs and more innovative measures need to be taken, but the situation could have been more worse if timely steps had not been taken by RBI and government, right? So this is my stand. Then I'm giving the supporting ideas with respect to this particular opinion, with respect to this particular perspective, that on one hand, like Mission Indradhanush infused the much needed capital in the banks. On the other hand, steps like IBC and amendment in SARFAESI Act made sure that banks are able to recover their money without lengthy arbitrations, right? So here I am giving stand, here I am giving supporting ideas with respect to that particular opinion. Now if I am talking about the closing sentence guys, so here you can see that I am referring this one, that is providing solution. So government needs to introduce more reforms related to corporate governance to tame the NPAs. So here if I have adopted this one, so according to this I am giving solution, right? If I am adopting second one, that is why should we care, so my answer will little bit change. These 2 points will be similar, but this one will change, that the why should we care with respect to the NPAs, because the increased NPAs put pressure on recycling of funds and reduces the ability of banks for lending more. Thus the increased incidence of NPAs not only affects the performance of the banks but also affect the economy as a whole. So that is why we should care, right? Why should we care? That is why we should care. So for the same question you can conclude it in a different manner, right? Either you can provide solution, you can end on a provocative question, or you can answer this particular question, why should we care? But the thing is that this you have to identify on a case-to-case basis. There is no hard and fast rule. There is no thumb rule you can say with respect to this. This you need to identify case-to-case basis, question-to-question basis, and based on your understanding of the question, right? That is why this is called subjective component. ठीक है, क्योंकि ये subjective होता है. That is why it is called subjective and descriptive component, because here subjective component is involved, right, friends? So guys, what are the tips for writing good conclusion? So there must be an optimism in your answer. ठीक है, optimism होना चाहिए. दो question is quite you can say inclined towards the pessimism, और कहीं पर किसी की criticize किया जा रहा है, but your conclusion, your answer, your conclusion must be towards optimism. ठीक है, अगर question का statement ही negative है तो भी आपको आपका ना कंक्लूजन जो है वो कहीं ना कहीं ऑप्टिमिज्म पर ही एंड करना है. सो ऑप्टिमिज्म इज अ क्रूशियल पार्ट ऑफ द गुड कंक्लूजन, सो दैट यू नीड टू कीप इन योर माइंड, राइट? and related to our paragraph, synthesize and not summarize. So in conclusion, you are not supposed to summarize the things. Rather, what you need to do, you need to synthesize the things. You have to write the essence, whatever discussion you have made in the introduction and body components. So you have to write the essence of that in conclusion and not just summarize it. Right? What do I mean by that? So I can give you an example here. So if I am saying that you are not supposed to summarize it, so you have to avoid these things for good conclusion. What things? Like we are writing in conclusion of as shown in the answer, right? We generally have tendency to write these things in the conclusion because we think that conclusion is all about giving summary. So we have to change our mindset. It is not about giving summary. So if you are able to change your mindset, you will easily skip these kind of things, right? So we are not supposed to write in conclusion of as already shown in answer, as discussed in the answer. So you should avoid these kind of things in the conclusion, right? Second things, what you need to avoid, that including evidence, quotations, statistics, etc., that should be in the body of the paper, right? So suppose if any question, if suppose any answer is there and if some data or something which should be there in the body, so that should not be covered in the conclusion wale component mein. Rather you have to cover that in the body component itself, right? So that you need to understand. Whatever evidence, quotations, stats you are mentioning in the conclusion, if that should be the part of body, so that must be incorporated in the body component, right? Then making sentimental emotional appeals that are out of character with the rest of an analytical paper. ठीक है? So you are not supposed to make any sentimental appeals. किसी भी तरीके की सेंटिमेंटल अपील नहीं करना है हमें कि लेट्स टेक अ प्लेज, हम ये चीज़ करेंगे या हम ये चीज़ रिमूव करेंगे. सो वी आर नॉट सपोज टू राइट दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स इन द कंक्लूजन. वी आर नॉट सपोज टू मेकिंग एनी सेंटिमेंटल और इमोशनल अपील, राइट? Then we are not supposed to criticize the government bodies, right? Though we know that something loopholes are a part of any system. ठीक है, loopholes हर जगह होते हैं, but we are not supposed to criticize the government body. So these things we should avoid while writing a good conclusion. Right, friends? So here you can see the example what we need to avoid, that we generally write in conclusion. We can say that video games are problematic for our society. Suppose there is a question related to video games, and in conclusion what we are writing that in conclusion we can say that video games are problematic for our society, guys. So we have to avoid this. This is just a summary, right, and not the synthesize. We are not synthesizing the things. Rather what we are doing, we are just mentioning the summary of what we have written. So we have to avoid it. We also generally write as shown in answer. Sexual education is necessary for our society. So we also need to avoid this as shown in answer, right? We have already discussed it. Video games are problematic for our society as they promote violence. As per report by XX organization, 93% of the children playing video games found themselves low on self-esteem. So guys, if you read this particular conclusion, so that should be the part of body component, and if that should be the part of body component, so that must be there in the body component and not in the conclusion component, right? Then video games are problematic for our society as they promote violence. So let us take a pledge that we will force the regulators to ban all these violent video games for the better future of our society. So we are not supposed to make any emotional or sentimental appeals, right? We have to give practical aspects of any particular issue, right? So question is, the descriptive writing is all about giving practical I can say having practical perspective or practical approach with respect to any issues going on, right? So if there is any issue that is converted in the form of question, so you are not supposed to make these kind of things, that let us take a pledge that we will do this, we will do this. So we have to avoid these kind of things. Okay, friends? So guys, what are the parameters for good conclusion? So parameters for good conclusion are optimism. There must be an optimism in your answer. There must be a synthesis and not only the summarized, right? So your conclusion must not only be summarized, rather it should be synthesized, right? And no data, facts, no criticism of government bodies, no sentimental appeals, no use of words like in conclusion as shown in the answer, etc. No data and no facts means the facts and data that should be the part of body component, that should not be incorporated in the conclusion component. Otherwise you can mention data and facts, right? That is completely okay, but that the data and fact that should be the part of the body component, that should be the part of body component only, and not in the conclusion, right? So I hope guys you are getting it. These all are the parameters for good conclusion. So guys, here is the homework for you. So this question you have to answer by incorporating all the points that we have discussed today, that what role can the e-commerce sector play in the growth of MSMEs in India, what are the constraints faced by the e-commerce sector in India, what measures can be taken to enable rapid and sustainable growth of this sector, right? So you have to answer this particular question, and while answering this question you have to follow all the entire process that we have just discussed. You have to identify the keywords, you have to identify the micro question, you have to introduce, you have to follow the guidelines of introduction, you have to follow the guidelines of body, and you have to follow the guidelines of conclusion, right? So you all have to write this particular question. Okay friends, so this is all guys for today's session. We'll meet on another session tomorrow where we will be live practicing the questions, right? So guys, I hope you enjoyed the session. अगर किसी के मन में कोई डाउट हो तो गाइज प्लीज गो थ्रू दिस वीडियो बिकॉज दिस इज वेरी हेल्पफुल फॉर यू फॉर योर एक्चुअल एग्जामिनेशन. इफ यू आर गोइंग थ्रू द वीडियो एंड इफ यू आर incorporating all those points that we have discussed in the video, guys, believe me, you will see the result, you will see the change in your answer writing habit, in your answer writing practice, and in the result of your actual examination, right? But guys, you have to practice it. ये एक बार वीडियो देखने से चीज़ें नहीं समझ में आएंगी. You have to practice a lot of answer writing. I have already told you that at least till examination write at least 2 answers daily. कम से कम, ज़्यादा आप जितना चाहे लिख सकते हैं, but at least try to write 2 answers daily, and that you can see difference in your actual examination. So thank you very much guys for listening me so patientfully. So thank you very much guys. We'll meet in tomorrow's session. Till then, goodbye and happy learning friends.